new education policy is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, new education policy and the role of technical institutions.
So if it is okay, and this is of course to the entire group, so how the education policy and how the technical institutions are going to therefore get involved in EVs and e-mobility is what is something that Dr. Poti is going to talk about.
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
going to come about how they are, because they're working on it directly and they're looking at clustering. Actually, in fact, she'll be very happy to talk about it with the audience, because they are looking to have support from various technical institutions, and they're forming these clusters at a certain level.
Okay.
And so I think she's also looking forward to talking to you about how that will span out and how it's going to come, and how all of you can actually, several people from here can be part of that.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
is what she was planning to do. So I,
That's really nice, madam, because this is like the main person who is handling the kind of project
yeah,
will be sharing her knowledge. So,
correct. Correct. So she is actually directly involved. Correct. So
yeah.
therefore, I thought it'd be good that she came in. So the other side, therefore, is that what I'm going to talk about is a little different. What I hope it is okay. I'm going to talk of laws. Of course, I'm going to talk of policies, but I thought let me talk about the various policies that exist for e-mobility, right?
Mhm.
What
Okay.
are the policies and laws that have come about, and how is it that the government is trying to get all of it together to ensure to promote EVs, right? So I hope that is okay, and if it's fine,
Yes,
I
yes,
can start.
absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay.
Now, my colleague is going to give a brief introduction about you to all the participants. Soon after that, he'll hand over the session to you, madam. Yeah. Hello, madam. Good afternoon. We will start the session now. Just I will give a brief introduction and I will hand over the session to you, madam. Okay. So, hello, participants. Good afternoon. Now we are moving on to the very important session, that is session 11 of Atal Academy sponsored 5 days national level online FTP on revolution and advances in e-vehicles. And this session 11 is about NEP 2020, New Education Policy 2020, the role of technical institutions. So this session will be presented by Dr. Anjula Guttu, Madam, Professor, Department of Management Studies, Chairperson, Center for Society and Policy, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And later on, another eminent research person will join us, and we will give their introduction later. I will want to give the brief introduction about Anjula Guttu, Madam. They have done their master degree in psychology from University of Delhi, India, and they have done their doctoral degree from Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. So they have received a lot of awards. So some of them are Chevening Rolls Royce Science and Innovation Leadership Fellowship, British High Commission, United Kingdom, Emerald IIM South Asia Management Research Fund Award 2013, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru National Award 2010-12, outstanding contribution in the field of public policy and social science by the government. Social Science Research Award 2019 by the International Development Research Center, Canada. They have attended some membership of committees. So they are empaneled external expert member of the Senate, NITK Surathkal, Karnataka, India. Jury member for 10th edition of Aegis Graham Bell Awards for Tech Innovations, Aegis School of Data Science with support of Niti Aayog, Government of India. Advisory Board, Amway Global Entrepreneurship Report. Empaneled expert member, Rajasthan Public Service Commission, Government of Rajasthan. Empaneled expert member, Empanelment Committee of Karnataka, Evaluation Authority, Government of Karnataka. Empaneled expert member, Professional Technical Advisory Committee, Karnataka Municipal Data Society, Government of Karnataka. And also Advisory Board, Corporate Ready Initiative, Green Step India Private Limited, India, and member of International Advisory Board, Cluster for Research on the Informal Sector and Policy, CRISP, University of Sheffield, United Kingdom. And they have published more than 60 publications in the areas of environmental sustainability, developmental dynamics, intellectual property, urban systems, informal economy, micro enterprises, social enterprise, women entrepreneurs, infrastructure, public systems, data economics and security, smart cities, transportation, and in rural sector, socio-administrative dynamics, citizen empowerment, decentralization. We are very happy that last year also Madam has delivered one session from our another Atal FDP on leadership and excellence. And this time also they are very happily accepted our invitation to be a resource person on this Atal FDP to deliver the talk about the new education policy that is now we are adopted in our state of Karnataka. So we welcome Anjula Gurtu Madam on behalf of our institution and on behalf of all the participants to our Atal FDP. So thank you, Madam, for being here. So we welcome you to the session.
Okay,
And now the session will be yours, Madam. Thank you so much.
So I hear echo for myself. I don't know why. I'll share. Let me just share the presentation. Window. Okay. Okay, here goes. So as I said that I know I was supposed to talk of the new education policy and you'd given me 2 hours to speak on it. So I have modified this a little bit and I was wondering what would be more relevant. I was looking at what other sessions have been like. I know they've been highly technical. And given that, I was wondering what is it that would make more sense. And anyway, Dr. Poti was coming in to talk about exactly what's happening with the clusters that the new education policy and etc. that they're talking about. So given that, I have modified the presentation a little bit. I'm looking at I'm looking at the role of policy, what the governments are doing, and how the research institutions are getting involved in promoting EVs. So given that, let me just start by just questioning, which this is a question that several people frankly ask, because India has a lot of natural resources and we are not polluting. I mean, while we have city clusters which pollute, but overall, we are not that high as as other developed countries. So a lot of people often question that, you know, we have developed so much competency in the use of biofuels and renewable resources. Where is the need to really invest in EV? And so, of course, I mean, if you start looking at what is it that, why this government has taken forward, this particular governments have taken forward in India, of course, we know the basic reasons stand. The fact that it's environmentally less damaging. Right? If you're talking of environment sustainability, you need to sort of change the higher, more polluting vehicles for better options. Right? We also know that there's uncertainty about oil supply. So while people are talking about, you know, they are talking about how to 2050, the way we continue, 2050 most probably, we may not have fuel at all, or it will be so costly that we will actually go back to cave age. And we also know, of course, the standard understanding that we need to reduce CO2 emissions, right? If we won't survive. The earth wouldn't survive. Humans won't survive. We see the climate change things that are happening already with so many hurricanes and cyclones and flooding that is happening in India and worldwide. And so we know that we need to sort of protect this place that we live in, the earth that we live in. And given all of that, there's also further other reasons why e-vehicles make sense. The fact is that automotive industry is strategically important for the development of the economy. That's it. All the industrial and technological and innovation that takes place there has huge amount of impact on the economic structure of that country. And it does end up promoting growth, economic growth, right? The other thing is that in general, we need to have industrial. So over the years, with rising imports and loss of local production and competitiveness in the automotive industry, we have had a process of deindustrialization that has taken place. And the fact is that industrialization is and reindustrialization is necessary for economic development. It is something that sustains the economic growth. So given all of that, despite the fact that we have lot of renewable resources and we have done good research in biofuels, etc., e-vehicles make a lot of sense, not just because there's a global push, but because internally also we need to galvanize this particular industry. We need to ensure that automotive as a sector grows, because then economic development happens. If you look at the data, also it kind of pushes you towards that. The fact is that if you look at the World Air Quality Report, the top 30 countries, 22 are in India. Of course, we keep hearing about Delhi and we keep hearing about maybe Kanpur, but the 22 of them which are actually in the top in the world. So we have huge density in Tokyo. We have huge density in New York, for example. But you would not see the same level of pollution as you would see with the same kind of density or in Delhi or any other Indian countries. That's reality. The fact is that we are the largest importers of fossil fuel, right? And it's imagine 88 lakh million Indian rupees in 2019-2020. And if we continue like this, it will increase 3 more times easily, because there are a lot of other activities that are coming in to for development. I hope I'm audible. You're able to hear me. I didn't check actually if you can see the
Yeah,
slide.
yeah, absolutely fine,
Okay,
madam.
then it's fine. And the fact is that transport is the primary source of pollution. So some of these reasons really push, despite the fact that if you look at data of a certain kind, you realize that India is in a good place. When it comes to environment, when it comes to pollution, we are in a good place as compared to other nations. But if you look at some other data, you realize that we really have no option. We have to move out of this transport situation that we are in as fast as possible. And therefore, why governments have started pushing in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tell you what are the different things that government is doing through the laws and regulations that they've brought about. Right? So basically, I'm going to talk about 3 of them. So some of the things that government has done to combat these issues, we have the automotive mission plan. It was 2006 to 16. Now it has been extended with modification to 2026. I'm now going to talk about this one. What I'm going to talk about is the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020. It has recently come in, just a year, and the government is really going very strongly forward in this. There's a huge role of institutions as well, academic institutions as well here. I'm going to talk of 2 it looks like unrelated, but they're equally related, is the extended PLI scheme that exists. And it has modified a little bit in 2020. So I'll talk about the scheme, the productivity link incentive scheme that the government is pushing now. And there's another scheme that has come, which becomes equally important. That is the vehicle scrappage policy that has come in Feb 2021. So we have kind of heard that you can only run your vehicle 15 years. And after that, you can't run it in this city, and cities are getting it. But what exactly is it we need to see? Right? So I'm going to talk of these. I'll start with the N2, and then we'll link it to, then I guess you'll have better link to the NEMP policy. So the productively linked incentive scheme is an old scheme. I mean, it's been there several sides, but what has happened is they have actually brought the automobile and automobile components in it in 2020. So it was there for several sectors. It was not there for automobile sector. And the component manufacturing sector, automobile components. So they have actually the government has got these 2 here. So this basically what they do is they provide supply side incentives to domestic manufacturers. And foreign companies are also invited now. Foreign companies are also invited to set up factories in India. So this is one modification that they've done, and what they do is they give financial incentives to boost manufacturing. So it initially started with cell phones and electronic components, and now has got extended to automotive as well. So interestingly, India became the 2nd largest producer of cell phones thanks to this incentive scheme. And So the scheme is like this: you have about 4 to 6% incentive is provided on incremental sales. So base year is 1920. After that, whatever extra that you sell or produce, not produce, sell, you get a incentive on that particular certain kind of incentive. There's a calculation, 4 to 6% incentive that you get. And as I said, it was working for cell phones and electronic components, and ended up making really India as the second largest producer of cell. And it has got extended to automobiles now. So what they are, so it has, so for the automotive component, it has a budget of 5.7 lakh million to be given as incentives for autos and components, and 1.8 lakh million, again I missed the thing, for battery manufacturing. So what they've done is they are giving this particular set of incentive. They've kept it for automotives, and I'll tell you how it links to EV then, and 1.8 lakh million for battery manufacturers. This is just incentive money for the year for battery manufacturers. And then average 5% of the production cost is also going to be given by the government as incentive. This is for EVs. Sorry, I should have written EVs. This is for EVs. The third thing that they've done is that you would know better, actually, all my audience would know better about advanced ACC battery manufacturing. It seems it's an advanced form of much more efficient battery that is there. They have also approved this manufacturing of this. And this becomes important, I guess. You understand that because most of these batteries have components of a certain kind, there's a limit to how much you can use and how much you can actually use and things like that. So what they've done is they have actually increased that for this particular ACC battery, you can have more. Those components actually have been relaxed as well. So what we see now, because of this incentive scheme that started in November 2020, a year nearly back, several companies have got into battery manufacturing and EVs. You see Tata Chemicals, Maruti, you have Foxconn, Dixon, Exide. They're all battery manufacturers, right? Amara Raja and many others have entered the field because of this particular thing. So there's one push from the government to have EVs for e-mobility. The other push that is coming is from the vehicle scrappage policy. And if you link these two together, then this whole mobility plan also makes a little more sense. So it was announced very recently. It aims to reduce oil imports with greater deployment of fuel-efficient vehicles. It says that it will remove old, unsafe, unreliable vehicles. It will boost availability of low-cost recycled, and that is important. It says that it will boost availability of recycled inputs like plastic, steel, rubber, etc. And the auto part industry, therefore, will get a push because you will have these recycled things that are coming in, inputs that are coming in, products that are coming in. And so therefore, the revenue increase for the scrap industry, automotive part industry, moves from 10 to 45 lakh million. Right. So, so what they are planning to do, therefore, this will do is that there is a set of criteria and rule of fitness for vehicles that has been decided. You not only emission tests, which some of us do. I mean, I don't know if it's there, but they're going to be tests for brakes, for safety equipment, and for emissions. And all heavy vehicles will have to have mandatory fitness testing. Further, for government vehicles, they cannot be on the road for beyond 15 years. For private vehicles, they need to have a fitness test after 15 years. They have to re-register after 15 years. And they have to pay a much higher fee. And after 20 years, anyway, your vehicle will get deregistered. So your cars, scooters, they'll all get deregistered. This has just come in. It's slowly becoming a law now, that you won't be able to run your car or your vehicle without getting re-registration, fitness test and everything after 15 years. And if you don't do this, suppose you're running it 16th, 17th year, and you don't have a fitness test, you haven't done re-registration, then they'll take the vehicle. I mean, you get take the vehicle and declare it end of life. That's it. You won't get it back. So that is the new policy that's coming in. And what the financial incentive that they are giving for owners to scrap their vehicle is this, that the scrap value of the vehicle to be 4 to at least 6% of the minimum of 4 to 6% of the ex showroom price. So 15 years down the line, there's a guaranteed return that you will get of certain amount of money. That is what they say. Then they're also saying that vehicle owners to get uh, some incentives against a scrapping certificate. So if you have a certificate which shows that you, after 15 years, you scrapped your vehicle, you'll get 5% discount from the equipment people on the new vehicle that you buy. They will, I mean, they'll calculate somewhere, but the OEM manufacturing people will give you 5% discount on their the equipment that's gone inside. You'll get a road tax rebate of 25% for personal vehicle and 15% for commercial vehicles, and no registration fee for new vehicle. So these are some of the things that they're doing to incentivize people to not get their vehicle beyond 15 years, drive their vehicle beyond 15 years. And the other thing that they're doing is that they're also creating business around it. That is one of the peculiar things about new policies that are coming in. They are looking at future long-term sustainability of the actions that will happen. So they're always looking at, are there sustainable business models that are there? And here the scrapping centers are something that is there. So they have given a list of what will happen in this policy. They're encouraging to develop scrapping industry. Basically, they're going to enhance that. And there's a public-private partnership model that has come to open registered vehicle scrapping facility and auto fitness centers. So these are going to start as businesses now. So informally, frankly, China has been doing it since quite some time. So you will see ships from Australia and so many countries full of scrap actually come to China. And the China scrapping industry is huge. They make big money because they recycle the product and send it back with bigger cost. They'll put more profit on it, and I mean they'll put more. They'll sell it back to the same set of people by recycling, refurbishing that particular thing. So so you will see something similar for the EV batteries also, that they have done in the new policy that has come in. So this is the vehicle scrapping. So having said that, the point is that these two policies, right, the incentive scheme, productivity linked incentive scheme, and this vehicle VSP combined with improved infrastructure for EVs through NEMMP are meant to create a shift in market acceptance of EVs. So basically they've done it. They are kind of putting an ecosystem to ensure that electric vehicles are highly incentivized and have high acceptance in the market. So that is what they're doing. So now coming to what they're doing in the, we have time, I must ensure 3:30. Yeah, okay, no. Now to come into what is this policy that is new policy that has come in. So I've just put these 4-5 things that they're talking about. I'll talk of some of them. So promoting R&D, I'm not going to talk of, because in fact you can tell me about R&D, about battery and etc. You're more experts than I am. So I won't talk of that. I'll talk of the rest of the things. So one is demand side incentives to facilitate acquisition of hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles. Then they're promoting R&D in technology, which most probably I think Dr. Poti will talk about as well, because she is talking of R&D and getting a lot of institutions who are doing, who are working in this field to come together as a cluster. I think she'll talk about it. And the rest of it, then they are also very seriously putting money in charging infrastructure, and they have a plan to make it more sustainable. I mean, so that economically it is sustainable, financially sustainable for companies to come in. Then they're talking of supply side incentives and of course retrofitting of vehicles with hybrid kit, which has been happening in India since quite some time, but now they're kind of encouraging that through the scrapping industry. So coming to the main philosophy of what they plan, this policy is doing for e-mobility and for electric vehicles. So if you look at how industry progresses and typically how automobile traditionally has been, it has been in a very non-modular architecture, right? It's highly vertically integrated, very close systems. There'll be large firms with strong supplier relationships to them, right? If you look at Maruti, if you look at any of these Mahindras, you see a very, very non-modular, very, very large firms, and they have their own suppliers, and that is the traditional mode that it is going. The philosophy behind this policy is that for to encourage actually the modular open systems. So what they're planning to do here for EV is that different supplier firms should come and plug and play their components in a common architecture. And there should be more formal horizontal industry structure, in the sense there should be large network of corporations, competing supplier, assemblers, developers. And in that sense, it should be an open system to help technology, because this technology is also needs to progress, right? We need to have more efficient batteries, etc. And kind of battery being the center actually of the whole thing, because it is the highest cost in the vehicle. And so therefore, what government is promoting is a very open modular structure. They don't want to take the route of large firms with, their own supplier base and the way the automotive industry. So they are, so therefore the EV product architecture that they are doing of production, demand, supply, everything is designed to be modular. They're creating platforms for accelerating technology progress. They're trying to see if they can improve the company's capabilities in building long-term relationships with customers, and they're trying to see if they can have a viable alternative for a policy to promote economic development. So they're looking at a much larger, developing an ecosystem of a certain kind, which is more not so vertical, but rather on a same platform. So what is it that they are doing? Okay, so coming to the demand side management that they're talking of, basically the qualifying criteria, which I will then detail in terms of infrastructure, this is what they're talking of. They're targeting batteries. So to design an effective demand incentive scheme, these are the things that they have touched. They have touched battery size, technology efficiency, assured minimum performance, the time taken to charge. For example, that is, so all of this has come from a huge, massive survey they did of customers. So 30 to 40% of the people that they surveyed said we would like to move to an electric vehicle, but these are the issues that are coming in. First of all, the cost of the battery, the size of the battery, how long can it run, the time to charge, as well as the fact that how much, what kind of performance we will get. Then the whole issue of to what extent will they incentivize. If you'll understand this, I should have put this at the end actually. Now I realize, because incentive structures will come later, but the point is they're giving such huge incentives. How much to incent to till what? 5 years, 10 years, 100 cars, 10,000 cars, 2 lakh cars, 20 lakh cars. At what extent should they incentivize and let them the market take over? And then the whole issue of safety standards and assured minimum quality, durability. These are some of the issues that came up when they started asking the customers, people who may want to, or who would want to. 30 to 40% actually said they would like to have these vehicles. So this is what they have come up with. After it was, these surveys were extensive actually. So the first thing that they're talking about is infrastructure. So this policy says the first thing we have to deal with is the range anxiety that the customer would face, right? The fact that you don't know how long will my car run and to how many kilometers it will run, right? That is the biggest scare that comes when you're talking of electric vehicles. So this policy tries to has developed widespread availability of public charging infrastructure and also facility for rapid charging. So what they've done is they put they have said that we'll create 3 levels of terminals. Level 1 terminal which will take 6 to 8 hours of charge time. It will be the least costly of it. And most probably it will be appropriate for residences, office buildings, parking lots, where the car stays for a longer time. So this will be the least cost method of charging your car. The second level, then they're talking of level 2 terminals, which are fast chargers, 3 to 4 hours charge time for the battery. Cost will be higher. And this most probably these terminals will be suited for areas with short short-term parking. Like you're talking of commercial areas, airports, 3-4 hours is typically your railway stations. So you do tend to spend a kind of a 3-4 hour time when you're going to either railway station. So if you're to drop somebody or pick somebody, either place you should have, or if you're going shopping in any of these areas, you should have the facility of just plugging your car and going. So once you come back 3-4 hours later, there would be some charge. Level 3, they are talking of developing this terminal, which will be paid. Why did I write paid chargers? No, this is very fast charging. Mm,
আর কিছু না, আমি তো তোমাকে রিপ্লাই করে দিলাম তো, ওটাকে এমনি জাস্ট এটা সেম মেল করে রিপ্লাই করে দিলাম। স্যার অ্যাকচুয়ালি যেটা 3টে পাঠিয়েছেন ওই আইওটির উপরে এখন
I
কোয়েরি
can
করছে,
hear someone.
আইওটিটার উপরে স্টার্ট।
Okay. So the level 3 terminal, it's not paid, it's like very fast charging. It's 30-minute charge time, it will be very high cost and suited for convenient locations like petrol pumps and toll booths. So this is the first thing it talks of, developing infrastructure in the next 5 years. Of the first thing to deal with will be range anxiety of the customers, right? So they will ensure that there's charging at various places and also type of rapid charging. So fast and rapid, actually, it's not paid, it's rapid charging. For rapid charging, that would be there. Then what it does, this policy, it separates out further again, differentiates between the type of electric vehicles, right? So, and it says that it develops a totally different strategy to promote EVs for all three. Two-wheelers separate, four-wheelers separate, and buses, interestingly, separate. So two-wheelers, it says, the survey said that they're less dependent on public charging. So average vehicle kilometer is less, and also if you look at, they are less negative in terms of environmental damage. And they most probably need less of public infrastructure, more of residences, office buildings, and parking lot kind of structure, right? So public charging may not happen parking lots may not happen, office building may not happen for two-wheelers, but residences most probably, and to some extent, office buildings may have to have. The reason why they're saying less of public infrastructure is because they are also planning to change the building codes now, which I'll come to a little, to ensure that all buildings now will have to provide, just that they have to provide XYZ safety standards, they will have to provide, when constructing a building, a area for charging of electric vehicles. That is another law that is changing. So four-wheelers will need private charging, but also need public charging, right? Because four-wheelers are something you would take for a longer distance. And they're also more critical because they're more environmentally damaging, and they need intercity infrastructure. And then they said buses will need both intracity and intercity charging. So this is how they sort of club this, what is the kind of infrastructure that is required. So the other thing, very interestingly, then they hit on this policy starts addressing is the India's power deficit situation. The fact that you have to manage a promotion of electric vehicles in a country where there is less of electricity, right? There's more demand and less supply. We have poor distribution network, we have very high T&D losses. I had thought over the years that they had reduced from 25, but now I was looking at data, there's some power plants that are still, and some distribution networks, the transmission distribution networks, largely distribution, less of transmission, but they're hitting 62% loss. Imagine 62% electricity getting lost for whatever reasons. So that is happening, and of course frequent overloading that is happening because we are a supply deficit country. So interestingly, so in that kind of a situation, if you're trying to promote electric vehicles, how does it work? So that was very, very interesting. So so they did extensive consumer survey trying to figure what is it that will make it go. I'll talk about the infrastructure a little later. It will come back again. I'm going to another point now. And this is the consumer survey, I should put it earlier. Okay, key barriers to adoption of EV. So I said actually in the document it follows like this, that after this talk they start talking about the consumer survey. So that is why it comes here. So as I said, I have already talked about how they said the charging infrastructure is it was a problem, and high recharge time was a problem with consumers. Cost of input, especially battery, was a big issue. So therefore, this particular policy has dealt with that very smartly. And I'll go into it a little later. So what they said, for the two-wheelers, they realized that the size and the battery capacity is small. So therefore, the same home charging. And therefore, they realized that significant investment in public infrastructure may not be required. I don't know if this assumption is correct, because a lot of people are arguing that to get into a new lifestyle of an electric vehicle, you may want to start small. You may not want to jump into buying a car, because we do know that electric vehicles had come at one time, Reva had come in, and it didn't sort of take off very fine. But electric scooters are going very fine. And the reason could be that we don't want to take the risk. We want to be risk averse. And therefore, we want to start small, see how it goes, and then maybe shift to a car. So Reva got bought by Mahindra's, by the way, and Mahindra is selling these vehicles, electric vehicles, to Europe and doing brilliantly well. In India, they were not able to sell, and understandably, right? It's a huge risk, but it's selling very well there. And so anyway, so therefore, is this assumption correct? Some people are questioning this, saying that no, most probably we need to start with scooters. And anyway, so the point is, when they did this, they realized if this is how the situation is, that we need to have home charging, and this is the kind, they realized they needed additional 600 megawatt power requirement just to support two-wheelers if they are looking at a certain kind of growth. So that was the first barrier that hit them. The fact that do we have the power infrastructure, electricity to actually take this forward. For four-wheelers, they again said 150 to 225 megawatt. Of course, it is less, they're saying, but the reason is that the cars, their understanding is that the cars would not sell as fast as the two-wheelers would. So therefore, given that, they said that most probably the number of two-wheelers would be much higher, and therefore less megawatt would be required for cars. But when they started calculating how much, they realized, the government says they need to put 750 crores to get this infrastructure, charging infrastructure going, and about 1,75,000 charging stations approximately are needed for the four-wheelers for this to be promoted. So that is what, therefore, they are planning to do. So I said they high chance. So then the other, I've talked about how there was this consumer survey that did this, and they came out with this barriers. So then from those barriers, they started thinking of creation of sustainable, viable business opportunity. That is something very unusual and very, very practical in that sense in the policies that are coming out today. They not only talk of what the ecosystem would be, they are talking of economic or financial sustainability of that ecosystem. And so therefore, this policy addresses it up front. Creation of sustainable, viable business opportunities. So they did it in the scrappage policy as well. They do it here as well. So what will be the models, business models? So they're saying government will create the infrastructure, private companies will run it. So here they also talk of how the use of research and institutional support from researchers to propagate faster initial adoption, which I will detail a little later. They said we need to have standardization of batteries. If we want companies to come in and get it into business of this particular thing, we need to have standardization not only of batteries, but recharging related components also, so that this business can actually go. They are talking of legal framework required for facilitating the purchase, construction of the infrastructure. They're talking of streamlining the charging installation permission process as well. Subsidies for equipment, tax breaks, grants, soft loans. So this policy addresses how a business can come around just the charging infrastructure. So they said, this is what the infrastructure will be. We will put so much of money to create this kind of an infrastructure for this kind of vehicle. And then we will further do this to ensure that private companies come in to run this business as a financially viable initiative. So some of the policies that they say we need to change, we need to ensure 330 because, okay, we have that. So some of the policies that they say, so therefore they start going into details of what they will do. They first talk of modification of the Electricity Act to allow for charging stations to sell power. So what they're saying is, at the time when, if there is extra, so they would also, first of all, they'll sell power to the cars, to the vehicles. I mean, there'll be charging stations, so therefore it will be like working like a petrol pump. But the Electricity Act will need to be modified to do that, right? So when you have these charging stations, then it is saying we will have to change the codes and policies for the buildings. For any of these construction that happens, residential construction, office construction, commercial, you have to mandate charging points. You have to talk of refurbishing the building to support e-charging. So buildings which already exist have to modify their plan to ensure that e-charging is possible, and new buildings have to create charging points. Right? That's part of, just like they say you have to create this bit of open space. You also will have to create a charging point. They also talk of how the prototype of the electric vehicle and the battery will be required to be type approved by testing agencies, right? And which will be part of the central motor vehicle rules. So they're talking of several rules which they will modify now to ensure that EVs are taken forward. It becomes a common lifestyle for people in India. The other interesting thing that they're saying is that they're going to separate out cost of battery from purchase of vehicle. That is one of the most interesting things that are very, very practical. So battery is a key component that determines the range, and also determines the range of how far will the vehicle go, how fast will it go, how far can it go. And it is also highly costly. It contributes to 30 to 40% of the cost of the vehicle. So now the government, this policy says we will separate the two. So upfront cost of the vehicle will go down. And the other thing is that the customer will have a choice of choosing their preference of the battery, whether they want a high performance battery, they want a budget or whatever, or they want a particular range, a particular budget. So the idea is to, therefore, the whole streamlining that they are talking of immediately of standards, putting in for everything from equipment to batteries to everything, so that this streamlining takes place, and therefore the customers have the choice of doing this. The other very, very interesting point is that they also saying there are going to be business models for delivery of the battery. They're actually constructing they have constructed a whole business model around the battery itself. They are talk of battery swap model, where you can suppose right now I have less money, I buy a battery which is of a less range, which has less capacity. I can swap this. Later at the time, I should have that. So the standardizations and the vehicles are such constructed that I will have the chance to go for a higher range battery if I want. They also, because battery cost is high, they're talking of leasing model as well. The policy talks of it, that as a business, people can actually do battery delivery business where they can lease out. So then the thing is that when you pay leasing means that after some time, you give the battery back. So the charges would be less for the customer because they're not buying the entire, they're actually giving it back. And so the whole alternate use of used batteries, etc., will also come in later. Then they're also talking of how the charging people who are running the charging stations can also actually do battery leasing, right? So then what happens? They bundle the charging as well as the battery cost, and then say, so the customer can pay cost of battery over a longer period. So there are these interesting business models that they're talking of just for battery, providing battery, and also talking about alternate use of used batteries. That is a huge environment problem, used batteries. So they also talk of that. Of course, they are interestingly talking of how same business, same, while you're delivering charging and delivering battery, you can do smart metering, grid powering along with charging stations. So it's also saying that you can take metering options of buildings, etc., not meter the cars, but say meter electricity metering. So they're saying these kind of things can also be part of the whole business model of someone who's running this service. Then if you're losing out batteries and those used batteries come back to you, what do you do? So there's talking of storage of energy for renewable sources, power backup for houses. So these can alternately then go into some other use. And they also talk of, this policy also talks of recycling of end of life batteries. So it's very, very interesting how they are slowly addressing and very comprehensively to some, and detailing all the possibilities that are there to promote electric vehicles, including the major component of these vehicles, which is the battery, right? And the efficiency of the battery, etc., and the use of it. The phase two, so they're saying this will be phase one. These will be the policy changes that will take place. This is how things will fall into place. Then they are talking of phase two, where I said they're talking of a modular approach for designing optimal recharging infrastructure, developing better efficient batteries, testing and development of components. They're talking of building collaborations. And I think our speaker will, when she's talking about these things, this is some of it, it is linked to this. All of these in that sense are linked. Further, they are saying they are going to in phase two link all of this initiative to other national renewable energy missions, sustainable development goals, etc. as phase two. So once the phase one is basically to put the infrastructure in place, start developing businesses around it, and then move to efficiency and effectiveness and other things. Okay. Okay, I think I'm coming to the end of the thing. So now I'm coming to what is happening at the state government level. When I'm looking, so if you start looking at demand side, at promotion of giving consumers and customers benefits, then you see a huge amount of states have already started this. Right? For example, I've just put a few here. Delhi is offering additional benefits like scrapping incentives, road tax exemption, interest waiver on commercial vehicles, with encouraging them to convert 50 to at least 100% of their fleet to EV. So this road tax exemption, interest-free loans, registration exemption, which is big money, by the way, road tax and registration is big money when you're buying a vehicle. And so they clearly, so many of the states are clearly saying we will not charge those. They'll come to zero if you buy an electric vehicle. So the incentive to buy and the cost saving that you do to buy electric vehicle is huge. So there are two models actually that are operating at the state government level. One is that they are benefiting the consumer. Then there are states which are actually working to incentivize manufacturing. So Delhi is looking at consumers. For example, they're saying 30,000. It's 30,000. Sorry, I think 10 is missing. 30,000 straight away as a direct transfer for people who are buying two-wheelers, e-rickshaws or auto rickshaws, which are electric or e-vehicles, basically two-wheelers, rickshaws and rickshaws. So 30,000 straight in their account, direct transfer, and 150,000 for cars. So they're saying that is the kind of incentive they're giving to the consumer to buy an e-vehicle. It's already there. Telangana, for example, is doing incentivizing manufacturing. That's another thing that these two models that states are following. It has already kind of set aside 775 acres of land for EV manufacturing companies. So it's already saying that the first 2 lakh two-wheelers that are sold will not have to pay road tax, will not have to pay registration fee. Similarly, 5,000 four-wheelers, the first 5,000 four-wheelers will not have to pay road tax and registration exemption. Then it goes a little down. For manufacturing, they're giving massive support. I have written a few here. There's power tariff discount, there's subsidy for the capital investment that you do, reimbursement of GST for 7 years, interest waiver for 5 years if you're taking loan from a state government or their government banks. And all, so Telangana is largely incentivizing manufacturing. Then Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, following the Delhi model, they're incentivizing buying, they're free parking, they're talking of free parking, road tax and registration asset exemption, interest-free loans they're talking of, establish they are saying interest-free loans to establish charge stations as well, and to establish fueling stations as a business. So they are also in that sense talking of loans to put the infrastructure in place. Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and UP are looking at, UP specifically, I don't know if I put that here. No, it's specifically looking at the scrap industry. So they UP is especially moving towards that direction, giving a lot of incentives to including battery disposal, to develop battery disposal facility. So all of these, Karnataka included, is doing it, but UP is taking it really, really forward. And Karnataka is looking at same subsidies and loans for original equipment manufacturing, single window clearance, and so many others. So these are some of the state government initiatives that are coming in from the demand side to push the demand a little further. So while state government, central government is working in a certain way, state government is also facilitating something similar. So EVs actually are coming in a huge way in the next 5 years. I mean, if you look at the push from the state and the center, then you will have electric vehicles on the road, and it will be more and more difficult to have a non-electric vehicle on the road. Right? 15 years, you cannot, you have to have so many clearances. You need to have fitness tests, not just for 15 years, but after every 3 years, you need to demonstrate you have emissions, you have brake, your other systems are going fine. So they are also building that disincentive to actually buy a non-e-vehicle. So, as I said, just to summarize, what is it? They're designing an effective policy. This is what they're looking at. So they are demand side, they are pushing to promote initial sales, right? For all the exemptions and incentives, there's a huge push to have sales for these vehicles. At the manufacturing side, a lot of promotion of the local manufacturing. State governments have typically taken up this up, and at their regional level, and they're promoting local manufacturing. R&D, which I have not talked about in detail. Most probably I will in the next slide, it will come. That the whole thing to actually have technical institutions work together for better battery services and better other technical services, not services, but I mean, better equipment is coming in as well, where they're looking for technical institutions to come together. And of course, they're talking of infrastructure, where they're saying to create that infrastructure, and for the infrastructure to work, they're going to promote businesses which are financially sustainable. Right? So, okay, I'll stop now. I think I have a few more slides, but I'll stop. Are there any questions there? I think I'll just sort of take a few questions first. Is there any questions there? Anything that I've just put a small set of things that are happening just to show you what is the ecosystem that government and ecosystem, state ecosystem that's coming in to promote some of the things that you have been talking about in this MTP. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Dear participants, if you have any question, I think you can interact with Madam.
Okay, so should I stop presenting? Okay, no. So should I go ahead with, I think I have one more.
Yeah, Madam.
Okay, so, okay, I may have opened wrong. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I have one more slide where it talks of the role of universities in innovation. I've just put it in a small way. As I said, I didn't go deep into it because you're the best people to know what is happening in that field. But what the government is hoping for is that the universities and technical institutions will come up in a big way to support technical improvement of all of this, from the design of the charging stations to the battery capacity to other equipments that are there, and standardizations, testing, all of that. So Will you also inform me when Sapna joins? Okay, so Tanishka actually has raised her hand. Should I take the question? Is it a question for me? Tanishka? Okay, okay. Maybe I'll just go ahead and then we can ask. Okay, so the 3 things or 4 things that they are looking for here in the R&D part is they are looking to create opportunity for researchers with industry partnerships. So what happens is typically in industries, if you will see, typically how the private companies, right, when this has the EV market has grown exponentially worldwide, and most of the R&D, if you'll see, has been in-house. Companies have done it. They have not collaborated with academicians here at all. And there is a reason for it, because the whole thing is so competitive, and so they don't want things. Free exchange of knowledge, transparency is not something that companies are looking at. Whereas research and academicians actually progress through exchange of information and transparency. So therefore, there's a bit of a conflict, and therefore a lot of research is not happening because companies are not collaborating with universities. So the government is looking to create those opportunities for researchers with industry partnerships, to have joint research projects with local colleges, have that clustering approach to generate the knowledge, all to generate research and innovation. Uh, uh, the other thing that they're looking for is contribution to fundamental research. Here, they basically, as I was saying, that because it has EV market has largely been in the last decade has been largely run by private companies, and they have done in-house R&D. And reason, of course, being that there's competitiveness in this market, so they don't want free exchange of information. So a lot of fundamental research still needs to be done here. And that is also what government is looking for, that researchers will come forward to contribute to fundamental research in this area, because there's still a lot of technical development that needs to take place. A lot of innovation has to come, a lot of efficiency has to come to the system. The other thing that they're looking is that universities typically encourage exploration through communication and relationships, right? They create space for exploration of new ideas, bringing about new ideas, getting stakeholders together, and so all of it in design. Either you're talking of better, as I said, technical improvements, you're talking of infrastructure improvements, you're talking of better designing of something. All of it, they're looking for universities to come, because they are the ones who will create that space for innovation. Lastly, that what the government is looking for is the fact that community involvement only universities and technical institutions will do. Private companies will not do it, right? They are the ones who will bring community thought and perspectives and focus. You would go and do research, you engage with students, local universities, there's education, through training, through so many other things. And therefore, the fact that the technical institutions have the power to create is very high. They have that power, high power. And the law here is hoping, the policy is hoping that they will be able to encash on that particular capability of the technical institutions to create a change and move more towards, let the population move towards electric vehicles. So with that, I think I'll close my talk, and we'll hope that Sapna has joined and she will. Okay, we'll wait for some time. I don't see her coming in. Any questions, please go ahead. Tanishka has her hand up. I don't. They have Academy. Tanishka Academy has their hand up. Is it for a question?
I think by Miss, it's been
Okay,
raised.
that's just a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we will.
Dear participants, Should we wait for 2-3 minutes, madam?
I think so. I think so. I think we'll have to wait for her to join. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's just wait for her to join before I proceed, because she needs to come in now. I'll check about her coming as well. Let me just see where she is. Yeah, this is a request everybody to please wait for the other speaker to join. And she was in a meeting, and she'd said she'll join by this. Maybe there's a bit of a delay in the meeting. So let's just wait for her to come in. Okay, it seems she will take another 5-7 minutes. She's just wrapping up the other meeting. And
Yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
No problem. Yeah, we'll wait for 5 minutes. Not an issue.
Yeah, she's saying 10 minutes she'll be there. 5-10 minutes
Okay.
she'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. It's still taking a little time. I'm in touch with her. She's, I mean, she's saying just, there's a, actually there's this World Economic Forum, and the leaders of World Economic Forum actually are in a meeting together with her and the principal scientific advisor, uh, Professor Vijay Raghavan. So that is what actually she was it's supposed to get over at 3:30, and that is how I had asked her to join in. But it seems it's
Uh,
stretching a little.
yeah, madam,
Hmm.
shall we do like this? Shall we ask our participants to join us by 4 o'clock exactly? So that
Wait,
instead of
let me
waiting,
ask her. Wait, wait,
or
let me
instead of, yeah, waiting
wait.
for,
I'll ask her. Let me just ask her quickly.
yeah, no problem.
Anyway, there's 10 minutes. I think we'll do that. Let's join at 4 o'clock because that's much better because her
Yeah,
other meeting is getting
that's what
extended.
even I thought the
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
madam.
Let's just do that. I think that's an. I'm really sorry for this. I was hoping
No
that
problem, no problem, madam.
be a good.
Participant, oh, madam has joined now. Madam,
Oh,
oh yeah,
okay. I'll just have a quick look.
she has joined
Um,
now.
she's
Yeah,
joined. So,
yeah.
Dr. Poti, are you there? Mm, I'm not able to see her.
She has joined now. Yeah, she's there.
Hi.
Madam is. Uh,
Oh, hello. Uh, so I'm glad. This is Anjula here. Let me just put my thing here. So first of all, Sapna, thank you so much for joining for this talk. And I'm sorry, I know we put a little bit of pressure on you. You had some other meeting and we kind of pulled you out from there. So my apologies for that. And so what we will do is, if it's okay, also, Prasad, Dhruv Kumar, can you also give an idea of the participants to the speaker as
yes,
to,
madam. I'm
of
gonna.
the MDP?
Yeah,
And then you introduce the speaker and then she will
yeah.
take over. Is that okay? Fine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Firstly, thanks to Sapna Poti madam for joining us for this session. With her busy schedule, she has made it possible. Madam, actually, this is a AICT Atal Academy sponsored 5 days national level program, and uh, the topic of the program is revolution and advances in e-vehicles. And participants are from polytechnics and engineering colleges across the country, and they are from different engineering disciplines. People are here from science background and engineering background. I think with your words, we are going to have an enlightened session. Please allow me to introduce you to the participants. Dear participants, it's an honor for me to introduce our distinguished speaker. Dr. Sapna Poti is the Director, Strategic Alliances in the Principal Scientific Advisors Office, Government of India. Her primary role is to promote scientific R&D and innovations for social impact and to address industry problems through industry foundations and government channels. This includes engaging science and technology institutes and the entire startup ecosystem to meet national missions and national priorities, including COVID 19, doubling farmers' income, Make in India, water mission, waste management mission, etc. Dr. Poti is a PhD from IIT Madras with a dissertation in enterprise resource planning and has around 26 years of experience in industry, consulting, and government. Her previous stints were with Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Tata Trust, and National Skill Development Corporation under the aegis of Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship in the social development and government sector. Dr. Poti also has industry and consulting experience with ITC, Hewitt Associates, Deloitte, Toyota Kirloskar, Tatas, and Crompton Greaves. Dr. Poti is a member of Niti Aayog's expert group on skill development for mountain states, member of MSME committee and MESA's advisory committees. Further, Dr. Poti is a Chevening awardee of year 2015. She is also a member on the board of studies of skill development and educational institutes. She has authored national and international journal papers. Today, it's the pleasure of all the participants and our institute to host our distinguished speaker. And once again, on behalf of all the participants and on behalf of our institute, would like to extend a warm welcome to you, madam, and the session is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, and I'm really sorry for being late today. Too many overlaps of meetings. I think I would like to address this in about 2 or 3 parts. One is, of course, to introduce you to the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India and to the Prime Minister and the kind of work that we undertake. Second is to focus on the city clusters, which is basically the clusters which work, with multiple institutes, and I think that would be of some interest to you. And the third is the kind of projects that we do in electric vehicles and how we go about it. So the first one, basically the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, as you would know, started with Dr. Abdul Kalam, and then we had Dr. Chidambaram from ISRO, and now we have Dr. Vijay Raghavan. This office largely focuses on advising on policies to different line ministries and to the Prime Minister's office. Professor Vijay Raghavan himself is the advisor to the Prime Minister on various science, technology, and innovation interventions. We also have 2 more large departments. One is the Prime Minister's Science, Technology, Innovation Council, which basically articulates and defines what the different national missions. It could be water mission, waste management, or oceanography, and so on. And they have different secretaries of line ministries as part of the council. And we have Dr. Saraswat from Niti Aayog and Professor Vijay Raghavan heading this particular council. The second department, which is also important, is the Empower Technology Group, which focuses on line ministries and the technologies which are required in the line ministries. The third division is the Strategic Alliances Division, which is what I head. And this is like a, we can say it's like a startup within the office. It's just a year and a half old. It started when the pandemic hit us, and we were scouting for good innovations that could help and support the pandemics. We work largely with different corporates as well as philanthropic organizations to connect academia as well as industry together to solve social impact issues, and pandemic being one of them. So last year we did about 56 such innovations, which had a whole host of COVID-related solutions, right from RT-PCR testing kits, antigen testing kits with Indian Institute of Science, IIT Delhi undertook. We had projects related to RT-PCR. We also had ventilators, oxygen concentrators, BSL-2 labs, which were mobile labs, and so on. So about 56 such innovations which we offered to the nation, and we also exported some of them because they were low cost and high value for the developing countries. Meanwhile, we also had different issues like substitution of imports that had to be done. So reagents, as you would recall, were being imported during that stage. So we decided that instead of doing that, we should look at indigenous reagents. So Bangalore cluster as well as Hyderabad, CCMB, NCBS, and IIT Delhi got together, and they not only researched about the reagents, but they also supported MSMEs to produce them, and we tested them, and finally there were industries that bought these reagents and finally managed to build these testing kits. We also had TCS offering their entire marketplace IT tool, which had connections to the global markets, so that the imports and the exports could be undertaken in one go. So there are different ways of in which that institutes, largely the innovators and the researchers from different parts of the country, came up and offered these solutions to India. So our division and this particular department that I'm talking about largely works with this section, which we loosely call as supply side of the entire ecosystem. We also have the demand side, which is largely the industries and all kinds of philanthropic organizations. They could be global foundations, Indian foundations, embassies, governments of different countries, and so on. So last year we've done about 1,030 crores worth of funding for different initiatives, and we took a lot of grant challenges to uh, this entire supply ecosystem. So our role is largely facilitation. We do not fund, nor do we touch funds as far as possible. We don't receive any funds as well. Since this is a humongous task, we also realize that there has to be a digital platform which will house all of these, so that organizations like yours and institutes like yours can also participate in these innovations. Otherwise, it gets limited to just few, national institutes that we are in touch with. So we have a whole host of ideas that we would like on the digital platform. So we have started working on that, and 6 months down the line, any innovator or researcher who has a reasonable innovation should be able to upload his information on that platform, so that the philanthropic sector will be able to connect and pick up what they please, in terms of wanting to support either centers of excellence or R&D proposals, or it could be innovations or scale up or implementation of market ready innovations and so on. The second pillar that we would like to have on the digital platform is an exhibition, a virtual exhibition hall, so that those who have innovated can also showcase the kind of innovation that they have. And the last one would be the focused group discussion, platform, so that people who want to pick up their stakeholders, including the last mile NGOs or communities that they want to work with, they could get into a, huddle up into a room and discuss and so on. So the whole idea is how do we bridge this huge gap between industry, philanthropic sector, and academic institutes? Because one would say that government has all the funds, but I think without industry or without solving social impact and industry problems, it is not possible to do enough applied research. So that is the reason why this division was created. In terms of electric vehicles and the kind of R&D that we do, we had a very good 4 or 5 years related research project that came from Daimler, and they wanted a braking system, which we actually offered as a call for proposals, and there were several institutes that sent their proposals, and then finally 2 or 3 of them got supported. I think it was IIT Madras as well as BARC, B-A-R-C, that got selected for support by Daimler. Similarly, we have something called the city cluster. So a city cluster is nothing but one city having different multiple institutes coming together to solve social impact issues. We find that some of the IITs, they do not work with the agriculture university. The agriculture university doesn't work with the leather industry, and so on. So how do they all come together to solve social impact is what we thought of. So we thought it would be good to have city clusters. So we have about 6 city clusters today. We have Bangalore as one of the city clusters, where Indian Institute of Science heads the cluster. However, they have to rope in other institutes. It could be NCBS, it could be any of your institutes which are in Bangalore, and like IIIT and so on, coming together to solve issues which have social impact. And and similarly, we have in Bhubaneswar, Delhi, Pune, Hyderabad, and so on, quite a few of these city clusters. Various social impact issues have been taken up as a project. Bangalore, for instance, has taken up health sector as one of the issues, and they also are looking at traffic management and so on. But Bangalore Chamber of Commerce as well as NASCOM Foundation, along with Indian Institute of Science and the cluster institutes, should ideally sit together and draw out which are the important areas that they would like to address, not from the supply end, but from the social impact end, in terms of what are the problems. So typically we find that a lot of educational institutes and researchers and innovators, they are very good, they are extremely talented, but they don't seem to understand the industry well, they don't understand the industry problem well, they don't also try to understand the time frame within which they need to act upon. So we need to bridge that gap. And similarly, industry does not understand why academic institutes need to go so deep into R&D and so on. So there is a fundamental R&D and an applied R&D disconnect, which needs to be bridged basically. So that is the attempt that we are trying to make, and we have done quite well so far. And lastly, we also have city clusters like Pune Knowledge Cluster as well as Delhi Knowledge Cluster, which is working on batteries, electric batteries. They are also working on overall solutions of hosting them as well as battery recharge and all of that. There are centers of excellence, of course, in some of the IITs, as you would be aware, for such projects, and we are looking at how we could fund them through the industry connects that we make on a daily basis. Thank you so much. If there's any questions, I would like to address them.
Thanks for your input, madam. Myself, I have a question on, does the government has any policy related to rare earth material, which are the essential part of e-vehicles? Like, for example, for battery manufacturing, we import a large amount of material from abroad. Does the government support these kind of policies?
So for e-mobility itself, they have an entire policy that they are drafting. I'm not very sure if it is already out, but there's a group which is working extensively with industry as well as academic institutes and government. They're working together to come up with a policy.
So let me just take that forward. So that is the policy that we were talking about before Dr. Poti joined in. And yes, so government has realized that some rare material will need to come to, if you want to promote a certain industry, we will have to make our environmental laws, which actually that's where it comes in, right? Use of material a little more carefully, in the sense we need to modify them to ensure that we can have more battery production, because we're trying to promote that industry. So the government is looking, that law that Dr. Poti is talking about is actually looking at modifying that particular part. They're actively looking. They know that they'll have to do it if they want to promote this industry, and they don't want it to go the way the solar manufacturing went, where China, we had to import from China because our laws were so strict that we could, most of the manufacturing companies were not able to produce PV cells because of that 1 or 2 ingredients that are needed, which are harmful for the environment. So there's a cap on how much you can use. So that the government realizes actually, and are planning to modify that to ensure that, those kind of caps do not hamper the battery manufacturing and usage and recycling industry. They are doing it. So can I sort of take the next, can I ask a question? Is there anybody else, or can I just start the question thing? So I have a question, Dr. Poti. I was just wondering, so what happens is a lot of times we don't get information. So ISC gets information because we have a dedicated team which looks to information about, different things that the government is doing and different calls that they're asking for research and things like that. So, for example, you're saying that we are definitely, the government is promoting and the PSA office taking e-mobility forward through different ways. But how would the people who are in other institutes other than the national institutes that are nationally more prominent, how do they get this information, and how is there anything that you're doing at your office to involve the smaller institutes or the other institutes that are there who may not be in big cities and may not have ready access to information?
Right. So there are 2 things that we are attempting. One is, of course, to have this entire digital platform, which would have, different housing different R&D proposals, as well as innovations which are market ready, the kind of work that they are interested in case industry has some offers to make, so that through grant challenges or through various problem statements that they share in terms of, looking for solutions. So that is one thing that we would most probably have through a digital platform, and we have started work on that. It should take about 3 months to 6 months, because on a phased manner we would like to host that, and that's open for any innovator or any researcher. It doesn't matter which institute you come from. However, of course, you would be tagged in terms of, if you are certified, if you have a proposal which is peer reviewed, some kind of qualifications or some kind of a criteria to make, people understand the proposal and how different it is and what is the unique selling proposition there on every proposal. So that's open to all, innovators and researchers across the country. This also would have certain missions of the government. We have a section for state government, proof of concepts that they are undertaking, the kind of calls they have for implementation projects and so on. So for instance, that could be entire R&D which the state government is floating, or there's a center of excellence that they would like to set up, and they are inviting innovators to be part of that story. So we would have that section, and similarly a central government section where people would know which are the different DST programs, for instance, or Ministry of Environment programs and so on, which link up to these kind of projects. So there could be some kind of schemes or programs that we would be able to showcase over there.
So,
and secondly, I mentioned about the city clusters. So the city clusters allow any institute to be part of that cluster. They should be able to be, the whole idea is that the larger organizations who have been undertaking industry, academia work for several years should be able to actually pull in the other institutes and mentor them and support them, and then build the cluster. So Bangalore cluster should ideally do this as a, that's the mission.
Okay. So would the Bangalore cluster also take technical institutions, for example, if the cluster is in Bangalore, outside of Bangalore, would we also be able to take people from Karnataka? Because we have several very good institutions which will not be hosted in Bangalore. And we would like to mentor them because there are very promising researchers there. Do you think there's something that, or the platform can help?
Yes, so the platform is, like I said, open to all. And in fact, if Bangalore Chamber of Commerce, for instance, if Volvo comes up with a problem statement which is e-mobility related, that could be housed on this digital platform and people can pick it up and run with it. It does not matter to us where that institute comes from. For us, the protagonist here would be the researcher or the innovator. So we don't even go to the institute level.
That's interesting. I think that's really nice, because if you decouple the institute from the person, then the person has more space to be able to move ahead in research, innovation, and other things, especially if they have a product or a prototype or something. That's really interesting. So I have one more question, but I think I should let the audience also sort of talk to you. So I'll come back to you later. I'll just open it for others first. So this is to request other participants. If you have any questions, any queries, you please go ahead and ask. Okay, I think they are. Okay, so there is. People are asking for a web address of the platform.
Yeah. So like I said, it will take about 3 months to 6 months to, develop this. So we have 3 pillars in this. One is the information exchange. The second one would be the, exhibition of innovations, which means that virtually you can exhibit the product or the technology or, kind of make a presentation and so on. And the third pillar would be the focus group or auditorium kind of a thing, where you could have conferences and so on the same topic. So the whole idea is to get this going between 3 to 6 months. It's called Innovation and Science at the Rate of Bharat.
Yeah, thank you, madam. The other day I had asked this same question to another resource person. My question is, the government of India has made it mandatory that the ethanol in petroleum products as a mandatory requirement. For example, by 2022, supposed to have 10% of ethanol in petrol, and by 2025, it's supposed to 20 to 30% of ethanol in petroleum products. So one hand, the support for ethanol in conventional fuel. The other hand, the support is for e-vehicles, battery technology and e-vehicles. So, but the whole lot of surveys say that by 2040, every vehicle which will be sold will be an e-vehicle. What kind of strategy does the government really have, madam?
Yeah, so I don't come from the e-vehicle mission, or it's not. This is not my domain expertise. I work on the industry academia partnerships and so on. The strategic alliances, basically.
So, are there any alliances that you're doing to promote e-vehicles? And is there any research that's going on in that area? Electric, either battery components
Yes.
or any
Yeah.
standardizations, testing?
Right. So quite a lot of work is going on. There are quite a few centers of excellence in some of these institutes which focus on batteries. There are, batteries centers of excellence which are separate. There are e-mobility braking systems and so on. Organizations like Daimler, Volvo, again Tata Motors, and so on. Some of these industries are very keen on such, building such silos within their or departments within their organization. So they are actually looking for innovations and technologies in this space, and they are willing to also support some of this R&D in the institution at an institution level. Government also has certain schemes. I think DST itself has certain programs and schemes. I don't have the details, but I know for a fact that e-mobility is one of the top missions for the science fraternity, under the government.
So I'm really, really happy that you're talking about this platform, because a lot of this information does not go to other people. And I guess once
Yes.
the platform comes up, all that information comes up, we'll have a common. So I know government has been trying, DST has kind of consolidated whatever they do under, so that you don't have to keep hunting in different departments about what they're offering. And
Right.
so it's really nice to know that there's a consolidated effort from the government also. All the research things would be on common platform. You can demonstrate, you can, and also pick up something that you want to research on, and you can interact with other. So industry will also be part of this platform, or?
Yeah, so industry is the main, main actor, if I may, in this platform, and the philanthropic sector, which means embassies of different countries, governments of different other countries. Because, for instance, Israel, Japan, Germany, they work with us very closely. Sweden, Norway, these are some of the countries very interested. In fact, today we had a call from New Zealand Trade Enterprise, which wants to do a lot of joint innovations with India. They are interested in some of our technologies. They are interested in co-researching and co-innovating. They're also interested in our markets, of course. And then there are a lot of Sweden companies, for instance, who are interested in India. So countries outside of India would be part of this. We would also have about 25,000 companies which fund, use CSR funding for R&D. And for innovations and for supporting institutes as well as researchers and innovators and startup ecosystem. So that's the second huge chunk of people who would be there in the demand side. And then third one would be foundation. So we have a whole host of, we work with Rockefeller, we work with Gates Foundation, IKEA Foundation. Today, for instance, we just floated a renewable energy 1 billion USD project, which is related to renewable energy of IKEA Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation and so on. So there are quite a few global foundations. There is UNICEF. There are multilaterals who work with us closely. And then we have several collaboratives, informal collaboratives who have 200, 300 companies supporting them. And with big chunk of funding for innovations and interest in, and a whole host of investors. So we also would have a lot of investors other than the grant funders. So that is the kind of this thing. Government is just in addition to these, that government programs would be part of this, but we would like to keep government programs outside, because I think there are enough information and there's too much of confusion, and there's too much of data in those programs. There are too many ifs and buts, and the schemes are very complicated. So we would like to keep that separate as far as possible. It would just be like a useful link, on the platform.
No, but this sounds very, very interesting and very useful, what you're talking about, the way, you're getting the whole ecosystem of innovation together, and then people can pick up pieces of whatever they want to be part of. This sounds like a very, very promising thing for researchers.
Right. And we've also kept it decentralized so that the corporates come on their own. They put up their grant challenges on their own. They can set it up, and the information goes on the platform. So on a regular basis, people check their own they log in, they check their own dashboards, and they pick up the grant challenges that are applicable to them. They can also, show their preferences that they are interested in renewable energy or on, say, e-mobility. So all the grants or all the, bulletins which are related to e-mobility goes to them so that they can apply.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that's from my side. Thank you so much. If the Prasad Dhruv Kumar, will you like to take over?
Yeah, thanks, madam. Dear participants, would you like to interact with madam? Do you have any question?
So I think some of them can also send me an email, and I'll be happy to revert.
Oh, that's really nice, madam. I think we'll get to have your mail ID that will be shared in the group so that they can come up with their questions. I think not everyone will get to have an opportunity like this to interact with two eminent speakers. You both are at policy making platforms at various levels. Your words and your time both are valuable for us, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. And we all are happy. I mean, great platform with great people. So thanks for being with us with your busy schedule. Nice to see you both. Thanks for accepting our invitation. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So, and on behalf of all the participants, once again, I submit thanks to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr. Poti, for agreeing to come. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, dear participants, we are closing for the day, and there is an announcement that tomorrow morning 8:30 will have a session again from Dr. Venu. Uh, uh, Again, he is joining us from Sweden, so please all of you cooperate by joining at 8:30. And in the chat box, you can see the mail ID of both Professor Anjula Gurdu as well as Professor Sapna Poti. You can in future you can if you would like to interact with these two eminent speakers, you can interact. Yeah, so you can make a note of the email IDs. They are so kind and they are so humble. They are definitely make a time to reply for your emails. Thanks one and all for joining for the whole day. With that, we are closing, and we wish you a good time. Thanks. Bye-bye.